The lecture hall was quiet except for the hum of the environmental systems. Silas Reed stood at the front of the room, hands clasped behind his back, watching 37 faces watch him. Some predator species forward-set eyes tracking his every movement. Some prey ears, tilted bodies tense with attention. Some neither, something else entirely, beings whose evolutionary paths had taken turns humanity would never take. He was 31 years old and already felt ancient. The holographic display behind him showed frozen footage. A training floor. Two figures. One standing, one falling. The timestamp read 3 seconds. 6 months from this moment, he would stand in this exact hall explaining what happened. But first, the incident had to occur. First, he had to survive the day that would change everything. The memory pulled him back, whether he wanted it or not, 24 months earlier. The civilian transport vessel Meridian's Hope had been designed to carry 400 passengers across the void between colonies. It had carried 372 the day it died. Silas had been the pilot. His wife Cassandra had been in passenger section C with their daughter Nora, watching the stars through the observation window. They had been talking about bravery. Nora, 7 years old, small for her age, with her mother's dark eyes and her father's quiet determination, had asked the question children ask when they're trying to understand a world that doesn't make sense yet. "Daddy says you're brave," Nora had said, looking up at Cassandra. "What does that mean?" Cassandra had smiled. She had the kind of smile that made rooms warmer. "It means your daddy doesn't run away from things that scare him. But he gets scared. Everyone gets scared, sweetheart. Even daddy. Especially daddy." Nora had considered this small face serious. Then how does he do it? The brave thing. Cassandra had knelt down, meeting her daughter's eyes. He decides what matters more, being scared or protecting the people he loves. And then he acts. Silas in the cockpit hadn't heard this conversation. He wouldn't learn about it until later when he accessed the passenger section recordings, looking for something, anything, some last piece of them to hold on to. What he had heard was the alert system screaming. Micrometeorite impact. Debris field. No time for evasive maneuvers. 372 souls and 3 seconds to save them. He had managed to angle the ship, managed to redirect primary impact away from passenger sections, managed to trigger emergency protocols that sealed bulkheads and deployed crash harnesses. He had managed many things in those 3 seconds. But not enough. Section C had lost pressure. The bulkhead had sealed. Protocol, automatic, designed to save the majority. Cassandra and Nora had been holding hands when the oxygen ran out. The recording showed them that way. Nora had been crying but quietly trying to be brave like her daddy. Cassandra had been singing. A lullaby. The old Earth song about stars and sleep and safety. Nora's last words, captured by her personal comm unit activated by accident in the chaos, had been directed at the darkness where she thought her father might be. "Daddy, teach me to be brave like you." By the time Silas had fought his way to Section C overriding emergency locks, the words were already echoes. The hands were already still. The brave little girl and her singing mother were already gone. He had held them in the silence. He had held them until the emergency crews pulled him away. He had held them in his mind every moment since. 18 months of grief counseling. 18 months of official inquiries that cleared him of wrongdoing. 18 months of lying awake remembering the exact angle of trajectory, the precise calculation of mass and velocity, the 3 seconds where he had been fast enough to think but not fast enough to save everyone. Not fast enough to save them. The Interspecies Academy had posted a recruitment notice. Humanity's first integration into the galactic educational system. Volunteers needed. Humans willing to learn alien culture, alien combat, and alien ways of thinking. Silas had volunteered for one reason only. Earth held too many ghosts. The Academy existed on a station orbiting a star humanity had never named. The architecture was deliberately neutral, designed to accommodate species with different atmospheres, different gravities, different concepts of personal space. Silas's quarters were small. A sleeping platform, a desk, a locker, a window that showed the void and the distant curve of a planet he would never visit. He unpacked slowly. Clothing, basic equipment, a data pad containing personnel files he was supposed to study. At the bottom of his bag, wrapped in soft cloth, a single piece of paper. Nora had drawn it 3 days before the voyage. A spaceship rendered in crayon with stick figures visible through the windows. A man in front, a woman and child in back. Stars all around drawn as 5-pointed shapes the way children drew stars. At the bottom, in careful 7-year-old handwriting, "Daddy's the bravest." He placed it in the locker, closed the door, stood very still for several minutes. Then he went to find the training hall. The first week passed in observation. The academy operated on a simple philosophy. Dominance disputes were educational. Conflict clarified hierarchy. Species that evolved through pack dynamics, through predator-prey relationships, through competition for resources, all brought their evolutionary programming with them. The academy didn't suppress that programming, it channeled it. Silas watched cadets challenge each other on the training floor, watched the ritual unfold. Posturing, circling, displays of natural weapons claws, extended teeth bared. Sometimes it ended there, sometimes it escalated. Physical contact, testing, one party yielded, lesson complete. Instructor Davron Thayel presided over these encounters with the calm of someone who had seen it all before. He was Krell, a predator species, tall and dense with muscle, forward-set eyes that missed nothing. 12 cycles of experience. Respected, traditional. He noticed Silas immediately, the human who stood at the edges, who watched but did not participate, who moved through the space like a ghost present but not really there. In his private notes, Davron wrote, "Cadet Reed calculating or cowardice monitor closely." Silas didn't know about the notes, didn't care, he was learning the patterns. Krell escalated through proximity and volume. Zentari, the hive mind species, moved in synchronized groups, conflict resolved through consensus. Sirani, aquatic adapted, used color changes and sound frequencies. Pelix, prey evolved, rarely initiated, but defended boundaries fiercely when cornered. He watched, he cataloged, he tried to understand, because understanding prevented tragedy. Understanding meant reading the signals. Understanding meant 3 seconds might be enough next time. Except there wouldn't be a next time. There was no Cassandra to save, no Nora to protect. There was only this, an academy full of beings who fought in languages he was learning too late. On the 4th day, he witnessed a dispute between a Krell cadet and a Pelix female. The Pelix was young, 24 according to her file. Named Mira, small-framed even for her species, with large eyes that telegraphed fear before she wanted them to. The Krell circled her, posturing. Mira backed away, ears flat against her head, prey instinct screaming. The Krell advanced. Mira stumbled, fell. The Krell stood over her, dominance established. The dispute was over. He walked away. Mira remained on the floor, shaking. Silas crossed the distance, said nothing, extended his hand. Mira stared at it. Humans were new, unknown, but the hand was offered, palm up, non-threatening. She took it. Silas pulled her to her feet, released her immediately, stepping back to restore personal space. "Are you hurt?" he asked quietly. Mira shook her head. Her translator rendered the gesture into standard. "Only pride," she said, voice small. Silas nodded, started to walk away. "Why did you help me?" Mira called after him. He stopped, didn't turn around. "Because you needed it. We are not pack bonded. I know. I cannot repay this debt according to Pelix custom. I'm not asking you to." Silence. "Then why?" Silas finally turned, met her large, confused eyes. "Because," he said, and his voice carried a weight he didn't intend someone should. He left her standing there. Dr. Silra Oman found him in the observation deck that evening. She was Sirani aquatic adapted, but comfortable in standard atmosphere. Mid-50s by human reckoning. The Academy's behavioral counselor. Her species communicated as much through color shifts in their skin as through words. Right now her tones were gentle, concerned. "Cadet Reed," she said, settling onto a bench designed for her physiology. "You've been here 4 days. You haven't spoken to counseling services." "Didn't know I had to," Silas replied, still looking out at the stars. "You don't, but most new cadets find the adjustment difficult. Human integration is new. We want to ensure you're supported." "I'm fine." The colors on her skin shifted. Skepticism. "Your file indicates significant personal loss." Silas said nothing. "Loss is not weakness," Dr. Silra continued. "Processing grief is necessary for—" I said I'm fine. The words came out harder than intended. Silas closed his eyes. "I apologize. That was disrespectful." "It was honest," Dr. Silra said gently. "Honesty is never disrespectful here." She rose, moved to the window beside him. "The stars are the same everywhere," she said. "Did you know that every species looks up and sees the same patterns? We just draw different pictures from them." Silas didn't respond. "Your daughter," Dr. Silra said, and Silas went very still. "Her name was Nora, 7 years old. The file says she liked to draw. The file says a lot of things. It says she was brave. Silas's jaw tightened. She was 7. She shouldn't have needed to be brave. She should have been safe. But she wasn't. No, she wasn't. Dr. Saura's color shifted again, something like understanding. And now you're here, learning to read the signals you think you missed. Silas looked at her directly for the first time. How did you? It's what I would do, she said simply. If I had lost someone to a misunderstanding that might have been prevented, I would learn. Everything, every gesture, every signal, every language of conflict and connection. So it couldn't happen again. She placed a gentle appendage on his arm. But Silas, learning won't bring them back. I know. Then why are you really here? He looked back at the stars, at the infinite distance, at the space between things. Because Earth has too many places where they used to be, he said finally, and I can't look at those places anymore. Dr. Silra stayed with him for a while longer. Then she left him to the silence and the stars and the ghosts he'd traveled light years to escape, but carried with him still. On the 6th day, Mira left something outside his quarters. Silas almost stepped on it, a small package wrapped in cloth. Inside, a food item from the station commissary, something Pelix considered a comfort offering. No note, no explanation. The next day, there was another, a small stone polished smooth from the recreation garden, a Pelix gesture of gratitude. The day after, a stylus he'd mentioned needing during a supply requisition he hadn't realized anyone had overheard. Silas looked at the items arranged on his desk, looked at the locker where Nora's drawing was hidden. Small kindnesses, offered without expectation of return. He sat down on his sleeping platform and put his head in his hands. Someone was trying to help him the same way he'd helped her, without pack bonds, without debt structures, just because someone should. And it was breaking something open inside him that he'd thought sealed shut. The 7th day was when everything changed. Training rotation, afternoon session, 40 cadets on the floor running combat drills. Silas at the edge is always watching, cataloging. And then he felt it. That particular weight of attention. Someone watching him. Varen Thrask. Krell, male. Predator species. Recently demoted from pack leader status in his cohort. File said he was aggressive, competitive, traditional. Everything his species valued. Silas noticed him noticing. Filed it away. Continued his drill. Varen moved closer. Silas was in the middle of a warm-up sequence when the shadow fell across him. He completed the movement. Straightened. Looked up. Varen loomed. That was the word for it. Looming, using his bulk and height to dominate space. Silas looked at him, face neutral, neither challenge nor submission, just acknowledgement. Varen leaned forward, spoke in his own language, first then switched to standard. You stand in my space. Silas glanced down. The training floor had markings for individual work zones. He was inside his own. He stepped half a pace to the side anyway, just to be clear. Didn't mean to, he said. That should have been enough. Varen had established dominance through the interaction. Silas had yielded space. Lesson complete. But Varen's eyes held something else. Something that needed more. You move when I say, Varen growled. Silas looked at him again, breathing steady, calm. I already did. Across the floor, Instructor Davron Thale noticed the exchange, noted the body language, didn't intervene. This was the spectrum. Warning, testing. One would back down. Varen circled, brushed Silas's shoulder with his arm. Not hard. A reminder. Several other cadets slowed their drills, watching. Dominance disputes drew attention. This was part of their educational purpose. Silas didn't turn, didn't square his shoulders, kept his posture neutral, continued walking to the next station. Varen laughed, sharp, harsh, and followed. The shove came from behind. Silas stumbled one step forward, caught himself, didn't fall, didn't turn immediately. He stood very still. In his mind, the Meridian's hope lurched. Section C, pressure warning, screamed. Nora's voice recorded, eternally preserved. Daddy, teach me to be brave like you. 3 seconds to act. Not enough to save everyone, just enough to choose. He turned, slowly. His breathing had changed, deeper, slower. Something old and cold settling behind his eyes. Do not do that again, he said. The voice was low, not loud enough to draw attention by force. Loud enough to carry, loud enough to be a line drawn. Varan saw something then that he didn't understand. There was no threat display, no raised hands, no defensive crouch. The human just stood there. Still. Predator species read movement. They read tension. They read the signs that a strike was coming. Silas Reed gave none, and that unsettled Varon more than any posturing would have. He struck anyway. It was fast. A heavy swing aimed at the side of Silas's head. Not meant to kill, meant to dominate. Meant to put the quiet human on the ground and end this strange, uncomfortable interaction where the prey wouldn't act like prey. Silas moved, not back, inside. He stepped into the strike, closing the distance where Varon's reach was strongest. His forearm came up, intercepted. The impact was sharp, bone on bone. Varon hissed in surprise. Silas grabbed the extended wrist, turned, not hard, precise. Varon's momentum betrayed him. His weight shifted forward, balance disrupted. Silas stepped again. Close. Too close for claws or teeth to find room. His other hand struck once. Short. Controlled. Into the upper chest where nerves clustered. Varon gasped. Silas released the wrist. Stepped back. The predator staggered. His legs failed him. He dropped to one knee, then both. His breathing became erratic, diaphragm temporarily disrupted by the nerve strike. 3 seconds. Opening strike to fallen opponent. 3 seconds. Exactly the amount of time Silas had been thinking about for 2 years. The training floor went silent. Silas stood there, arms at his sides, chest rising and falling, sweat darkening the fabric at his collar. His jaw was tight. His hands were shaking. Instructor Davron Thayel had moved the moment the strike began. He arrived to find Silas standing still and Varon on the ground, conscious, breathing, unable to rise. Davron scanned quickly. No blood, no visible breaks. Varon's chest moved. Pain, but not fatal. He looked at Silas. What happened? Silas didn't look away from the fallen cadet. His voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. He told me to move. I did. He didn't stop. Davron felt something cold settle in his spine. This wasn't rage. This wasn't panic. This was conclusion. Medical staff rushed in. They stabilized Varon, checked vitals, administered something for the pain and the neural disruption, carried him away on a suspension field. He would recover. His pride would take longer. Davron dismissed the other cadets. Training ended early. Silas remained where he was. Didn't move until told to. Didn't argue. Didn't celebrate. As he walked off the floor, several cadets watched him with new wariness. Davron stayed behind, replaying the moment in his mind. He had seen fights before. Long ones. Brutal ones. Displays meant to send messages. This had been none of that. The human hadn't postured, hadn't escalated, had ended it. And Davron realized with growing unease that he hadn't stepped in too late because he was slow. He'd stepped in too late because the human had finished before Academy rules could even register what was happening. 3 seconds, from first strike to resolution. 3 seconds that changed everything. The evaluation chamber was small. Neutral lighting, no restraints, no observers visible beyond the glass, but Silas knew they were there. Instructor Davron Thayel entered with a data slate. Behind him came Dr. Silra Oman. They sat. Silas stood. Dr. Silra studied him for a long moment. Her skin colors shifted through several patterns. You don't show stress markers consistent with violent conflict, she said finally. Silas shrugged slightly. It was quick. Davron didn't like how simple that sounded. Varon outweighs you significantly, he said. His species has natural weapons. Why didn't you disengage when he first approached? Silas looked at the floor, then back up. Because he wasn't dangerous yet. Dr. Silra tilted her head. Define dangerous. When he started touching me, Silas replied, after I told him to stop. Davron and Silra exchanged a glance. Predator species often escalated through ritual contact. Humans apparently marked a different threshold. You understand that dominance disputes are tolerated here, Davron said carefully. Silas nodded. I do. You could have backed down. I did. I moved. That was the first thing I did. Dr. Silra tapped her slate. You did not submit. Silas frowned slightly. I'm not part of his hierarchy. The words were plain. No challenge in them. Just fact. Davron leaned forward. Then why end it so decisively? Silas considered the question. When he spoke, his voice was steady. Because if I let it continue, someone gets hurt worse. Either him or me, or someone else who steps in. You calculated that in the moment. Yes, Dr. Silra's colors shifted to something concerned. Your strikes were precise. You didn't pursue once he fell. There was no reason, Silas said. He couldn't continue. Davron studied the human's eyes. Not anger, not triumph, just focus. When did you decide the outcome? Silas met his gaze steadily. When he shoved me from behind. Silence filled the chamber. Dr. Syra broke it. You did not posture. You did not threaten. Why, bye. Silas's jaw worked for a moment. Posture gives people time to decide wrong things. More silence. Then something changed in Silas's expression. Something cracked. His hands, which had been steady, began to shake again. I had 3 seconds, he said quietly, on the Meridian's hope. 3 seconds to save my wife and daughter. Davron went very still. I calculated everything, Silas continued, voice breaking. Trajectory, impact angles, which sections to prioritize. I sealed the bulkheads. I triggered emergency protocols. I did everything right. His hands clenched into fists. But it wasn't enough. 3 seconds to think, not enough time to save everyone. Dr. Silra's colors shifted to deep, mournful blue. My daughter, Silas whispered. My daughter called for me. She said, Daddy, teach me to be brave like you. And I couldn't get to her, I couldn't save her, because 3 seconds was long enough to think, but not long enough to act. He looked up, eyes wet. With Veron, I didn't think. I just ended it. The way I should have ended the cascade failure. The way I should have saved her. A tear tracked down his face. I couldn't save Nora in 3 seconds, but I could stop Veron, and that's all I could think about. 3 seconds, not enough to save her, enough to finish this. Davron set down the data slate, looked at Dr. Silra. She nodded slightly. Cadet Reed, Davron said gently, you're not on trial here. I scared him, Silas said. Varen, at the end, he was scared. My daughter was scared when she died. I saw it in the recording. She was trying to be brave, but she was terrified. And I made Varen feel that. I didn't want to, but I did. That's why you said sorry, Dr. Silra said quietly. On the floor, you whispered it. I didn't want him to be afraid, Silas said. I just wanted it to stop. Davron exchanged another long look with Dr. Silra. They both understood now. This wasn't a discipline case. This was a broken man trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed. We're ending this evaluation, Davron said. You'll remain active in the cadet program. The incident is logged as concluded dominance dispute with medical outcome. No further action. Silas nodded numbly, but Dr. Silra added, you will attend counseling sessions, twice weekly, non-negotiable. Yes, ma'am. They let him leave. Outside the chamber, Silas walked through corridors that suddenly felt too bright, too loud, too full of beings going about their lives, while his remained frozen 2 years in the past. He made it to his quarters, closed the door, sat on his sleeping platform, opened the locker, looked at Nora's drawing. I'm sorry, he whispered to the crayon spaceship. I'm so sorry. The drawing didn't answer. It never did. He closed the locker, lay down, stared at the ceiling. Sleep, when it came, brought the dreams. The same dreams. Section C decompressing. Cassandra singing, Nora reaching. 3 seconds that lasted forever. The knock came well past midnight, station time. Silas opened the door to find Veron Thrask standing in the corridor. The Krell looked uncomfortable, one arm in a support brace, moving carefully, still feeling the effects of the nerve strike. They stared at each other. Finally, Veron spoke. Why did you say sorry? Silas blinked. What? On the floor, after. You said it. Quietly, but I heard. Varen's eyes were confused. You won. Why apologize to the defeated? Silas leaned against the doorframe, suddenly very tired. Because I scared you. You defeated me. That's not the same thing. Varen's head tilted. Explain. Silas looked at this being who had challenged him, hurt him, forced him to act, and saw not an enemy, just someone confused by a language they didn't share. My daughter, he said quietly, was scared at the end of her life. I saw it in her face, in her eyes, and I never want to see that fear in anyone again. Not if I can help it. Veron processed this. But you did help it. You caused it. I know, and I'm sorry. This makes no sense. On my world, victory is celebrated. I'm not from your world. They stood in silence for a long moment. I do not understand humans, Varen said finally. I don't understand Krell, Silas replied. That's why I'm here, trying to learn. To learn what? How to read the signals I missed, so no one else dies because of a misunderstanding. Varen's eyes narrowed. The people on your ship, that was misunderstanding. I think so, I hope so. Because if it was just random chance, then there's no point to any of this. Veron studied him for another long moment, then nodded slowly. I came to challenge you again, to restore honor. But I think, he paused. I think I do not understand what honor means to you. Probably not, Silas agreed. You did not want to fight. No. When you did, it was already over. Yes. Veron's expression shifted to something that might have been respect, might have been wariness. On my world, we give a time, we show teeth, we circle. This allows both parties to measure strength, to withdraw if overmatched. I know, Silas said. I've been studying. But you did not give time. No. Why? Silas looked at him steadily. Because I spent 2 years wishing I'd had less time to think and more time to act. So when the moment came, I didn't think. I just acted. And by the time I realized what I'd done, you were already down. Veron absorbed this. You are broken, he said, not cruelly, just stating fact. Yes, Silas agreed. I am. And you came here to fix this. I came here to run away from it. There's a difference, Veron. Veron nodded slowly, started to turn away, stopped. Your daughter, she wanted you to teach her bravery. Silas went very still. How did you, medical staff? They gossip. Word spreads. Veron looked back. Did you teach her? Silas's throat tightened. I tried. Then she learned it. Because you are here, still trying, despite being broken. Veron's eyes held something new. That is brave, even if you do not think so. He walked away, leaving Silas standing in the doorway, something shifting in his chest. The next morning, Dr. Silra found him in the observation deck again. She didn't ask permission, just sat beside him. Varen visited you, she said. Not a question. Word spreads, Silas replied, echoing the Krell's words. He withdrew his complaint, said it was educational outcome. Lesson learned. What lesson? He didn't specify. They watched the stars in silence. Silas, Dr. Silra said eventually, the Academy is going to change policy because of what happened. They're adding intervention thresholds for human cadets, recognizing that you don't follow the same escalation patterns. Good. But that's not enough, is it? You didn't come here to change policy. You came here to disappear. He didn't deny it. It's not working, she continued gently. The disappearing. Because everywhere you go, you bring her with you. Nora. She's in every lesson you observe, every interaction you catalog, every 3-second interval you relive. Silas closed his eyes. I know. Then let me ask you something. What would she want? For me to have saved her. Besides that, if she could see you now here, what would she want you to do? Silas opened his eyes, looked at the stars, at the infinite distance, remembered her last words. Not save me, not I'm scared. Daddy, teach me to be brave like you. She wanted me to teach her, he whispered, to teach her bravery. Dr. Silra's colors shifted to warm encouragement. And you can't do that anymore. Can you? No. But you could teach others. Silas looked at her sharply. She met his gaze steadily. You helped Mira when she fell. You defended yourself when Varen pushed too far. You explained to an entire evaluation board why humans don't posture. Whether you meant to or not, you're already teaching. The question is, will you do it intentionally, or will you keep running from the only thing that might actually help? I don't want to teach, Silas said. I want to learn. Those aren't opposites. And right now, this academy needs what you know. Needs to understand how humans set boundaries, how humans protect without dominating, how humans conclude conflicts in 3 seconds when everyone else needs 3 minutes. She stood, placed a gentle appendage on his shoulder. Your daughter asked you to teach her bravery, she said. You didn't get the chance. But Silas, there are dozens of cadets here who need exactly that lesson, who need to learn that bravery isn't about posturing. It's about acting when action is needed. She moved toward the exit, paused. Stay and teach others what Nora wanted to learn, or leave and let her last wish die with her. The door closed behind her. Silas sat alone in the observation deck for a long time, looking at stars that were the same everywhere, thinking about a little girl who had drawn him as the bravest person in the universe, and wondering if maybe, just maybe, there was a way to make that true. Even now, even broken, even 2 years too late to save the one person who mattered most. The drawing was in his locker. Her words were in his memory. Daddy, teach me to be brave like you. He couldn't teach her, but he could teach them. And somewhere in the distance, between running away and moving forward, Silas Reed began to understand that maybe that was the point. Maybe that was what bravery meant. Not saving everyone, just teaching the ones you can reach. He stood, walked to the door, paused at the threshold. Then he went to find Instructor Davron Thayel and ask about teaching assistant positions. Because Nora had asked him for one thing, and he was finally ready to try it. The lecture hall held 200 seats. Every single one was filled. Silas stood in the back row, arms crossed, watching Instructor Davron Thayel prepare the presentation. 3 months had passed since the incident with Veron. 3 months of mandatory counseling sessions with Dr. Silra. 3 months of slowly, painfully learning to exist in a world that kept spinning while his heart remained frozen 24 months in the past. Cassandra and Nora had been gone for 2.5 years now. Nora would have been 9.5, almost 10, double digits. She'd been so excited about turning 8, about being a big kid now. She never got there. The lights dimmed. Silas pulled his attention back to the present. Davron's voice carried across the hall. This recording is now mandatory viewing for all cadets, not as a warning, as instruction. The display behind him flickered to life. The training floor. 2 figures. A shove. A turn. 3 seconds. Silas watched himself on the screen. Watched his own face empty of rage or fear or triumph. Just conclusion. Just ending. The footage played twice. No sound except breathing. The impact of bone on bone. The gasp. The fall. Then Davron froze it, Veron on his knees. Silas standing arms at sides. Human conflict resolution, Davron said, does not follow the patterns we recognize. There is no ritual escalation, no threat display, no ceremony of strength. A clawed hand rose from the third row, a young Krell bristling with indignation. Instructor, the human violated dominance protocol. He should have displayed intention. Davron nodded calmly. Correct. By our standards, yes. Murmurs rippled through the hall. So why is he not disciplined? Another cadet demanded. Davron let the question hang. Then he gestured toward the back of the room. Perhaps we should ask him directly. 200 heads turned. Silas felt every eye land on him. Felt the weight of their confusion, their curiosity, their judgment. He wanted to leave. Wanted to disappear back into the observation deck where no one asked questions and the stars kept their silent counsel. But Dr. Silra's words echoed in his mind. Teach others what Nora wanted to learn. He stood. The walk down the center aisle felt endless. His boots on the floor the only sound. Predator species tracking his movement. Prey species tensing at his approach. Everyone trying to understand the human who broke their rules and walked away unpunished. He reached the front, stood beside Davron, faced the room. You have questions, Silas said quietly. Ask them. A forest of hands shot up. Davron pointed to a Zentari in the 4th row. Why did you not warn him? The Zentari asked, voice harmonizing with itself in the way of hive minds. Krell recognized threat display. You gave none. Silas looked at the footage behind him. At the moment before contact. I did warn him. I said, don't do that again. Those were my words. Clear boundary. He chose to cross it. But you did not show how you would enforce that boundary, another voice called out. Without display, how could he measure the cost? He couldn't, Silas agreed. That's the point. Confusion spread like ripples. A Pelix female in the front row, small-framed, large eyes, nervous, raised a tentative hand. Davron nodded to her. I don't understand, she said softly. If you show strength first, the fight might not happen. Both parties can withdraw. Why skip that step? Silas looked at her. Really looked. She couldn't have been more than 19. Prey species, probably bullied her whole life. Coming here hoping to learn how to survive in a galaxy full of predators. She reminded him of someone. Because, he said, and his voice carried a weight he couldn't hide. My daughter understood something at 7 years old that took me 31 years to learn. The room went absolutely silent. She asked me once why words were faster than fighting. I told her it was because words travel at the speed of sound, but decisions travel at the speed of thought. He paused. She said that didn't make sense. Fighting was deciding to hit someone. That should be just as fast. A few cadets leaned forward. So I explained it differently. I said when you threaten someone, you give them time to decide if you're bluffing, time to calculate if they can take you, time to commit to escalation. But if you just act, there's no calculation, there's just consequence. He gestured to the frozen footage. Veron had time to decide. He had my words. He had my body language. He had every signal a human gives that says, this is the line. He chose to cross it anyway, so I didn't give him time to decide anything else. But the young Pelix spoke again, voice barely above a whisper. But you could have hurt him worse. Killed him even. How did you know when to stop? Silas met her eyes, held them. Because hurting people isn't the goal. Stopping them is. He turned to address the whole room. Posturing isn't about preventing violence. It's about establishing hierarchy, proving who's stronger, making someone back down so you can claim dominance. That's not what I was doing. I wasn't trying to dominate Varan. I was trying to make him stop touching me after I asked him to stop. A Krell in the back row growled low. That is coward's logic, refusing to engage in ritual combat because you fear losing. Silas looked at him steadily. You're right, I did refuse ritual combat, not because I feared losing, because I don't care about winning. I care about ending. The distinction seemed to confuse them more. Davron stepped in. What Cadet Reed is explaining is that human conflict operates on a different foundation. Predator species use conflict to establish social order. Humans use conflict to establish boundaries. Those are not the same thing. He advanced the footage frame by frame. Observe. The human does not wait for confirmation, does not trade signals. The moment he determines the interaction has become unacceptable, he concludes it. No ceremony, no escalation curve, just decision and action. A hand rose. A female cadet, Serani Aquatic, adapted. Then how do we know when a human has decided? What are the warning signs? Silas answered before Davron could. Words. We use words. If a human tells you to stop and you don't, everything that happens next is on you. But words can be empty, Azentari objected. Threats without backing. How do we know which humans mean it? All of them, Silas said flatly. That's what you're not understanding. When a human says stop, they mean it. Every time. Whether they can enforce it or not, that's the boundary. Cross it at your own risk. The young Pelix raised her hand again. Hesitant. Davron nodded. Can you teach me? She asked. The room seemed to contract. Silas felt the air leave his lungs. She was looking at him with those large, hopeful eyes. Prey species. Small. Probably terrified most of the time, but trying so hard to be brave. Nora had looked at him like that, the day before the voyage. Daddy, teach me to be brave like you. He'd promised her he would, after the trip, when they got to the new colony. He'd teach her everything. He never got the chance. Silas started, then stopped. His throat had closed. The girl waited. The whole room waited. Dr. Sorrow was somewhere in the audience. He couldn't see her, but he could feel her presence, could hear her words. Teach others what Nora wanted to learn. Yes, he said finally. Yes, I can teach you. The girl's face brightened. Really? What's your name? Silas asked. Kale, she said. My name is Kyle. Kale, not Nora, but close enough in spirit to make his heart ache. Then yes, Kale, I'll teach you. It started small. Kale, Mira, and 3 other cadets, mixed species. All of them smaller, weaker prey evolved, or otherwise disadvantaged in a dominance-based system. They met in a secondary training room. Neutral space. No observers. Silas stood before them feeling profoundly unqualified. He wasn't a teacher. He was a pilot, a widower, a man trying to outrun ghosts. But Nora's drawing was in his locker. Her voice was in his memory, and these 5 beings were looking at him like he had answers. I'm not going to teach you how to fight, he said. I'm going to teach you how to make fighting unnecessary, and if it becomes necessary anyway, how to end it quickly. Mira spoke up. What's the difference? Fighting is about winning, Silas replied. Ending is about surviving. Those aren't the same thing. He had them practice stances, not aggressive, not defensive, neutral. You want to look like you're not a threat and not a target. Present no challenge. Show no fear, just exist in your space. Kale struggled with it. Prey instinct made her want to shrink, make herself smaller, less visible. No, Silas said gently. Stand up straight, own your space. You're allowed to exist here. But if I look confident, won't predators challenge me? Only if you look like you're challenging them back. There's a difference between confidence and confrontation. He demonstrated, shoulders back, head level, eyes forward, but not locked on anyone. This says I'm here and I have a right to be here. Not I'm here and I'm better than you. See the difference? Slowly Kale straightened. Her shoulders went back. Her chin lifted. Good, Silas said. And for a moment, for just a flicker, he saw Nora learning to ride her bike. The same concentration, the same determination. He blinked the memory away. The sessions continued, 3 times a week, then 5. Word spread. More cadets asked to join. Silas had to move them to a larger room. Dr. Silra attended one session, stood in the back watching. Her skin colors shifted through patterns he'd learned meant approval. Afterwards, she found him in the corridor. "You're good at this," she said. "I'm adequate at this," Silas corrected. "You're healing." He shook his head. "I'm teaching. That's different." "Is it?" He didn't answer. Dr. Silra studied him with those alien eyes that somehow saw too much. "You talk about Nora in the sessions. Did you know that?" Silas went still. "I do, not directly, but you reference her. My daughter used to say, when I taught someone close to me, I learned this from a very brave 7-year-old. Her colors softened. "You're keeping her alive, in every lesson, in every cadet you help." "She's dead," Silas said quietly. "Talking about her doesn't change that." "No, but it changes you. You're not the same man who arrived here 9 months ago, the one who wanted to disappear." "I still want to disappear sometimes. But you don't, because they need you." She gestured back toward the training room. "Kale needs you. Mira needs you. Even Veron needs you, though he'd never admit it." Silas frowned. "Veron, he's been attending your sessions, standing in the back, watching." "I haven't seen him, because he doesn't want to be seen. He's learning, not how to fight, how to understand." Dr. Silra's colors shifted to something warm. "You're building something here, Silas, whether you mean to or not. A family. They're not my family." "Aren't they?" She left him standing in the corridor, the question hanging in the air. 2 weeks later, Veron appeared in the doorway of the training room, openly this time. No longer hiding. The session paused. Everyone looked at him. Veron looked at Silas. "I want to join." "Why should I?" Silas asked. "Because I do not understand what you teach, and what I do not understand cannot hurt me again." "Fair enough," Silas nodded. "Find a space." Veron entered. The other cadets gave him room instinct, making them wary. But he didn't posture. Didn't take more space than he needed. Just found a spot and waited. Silas continued the lesson, teaching them to read body language, to recognize when someone was about to escalate, to set verbal boundaries clearly. "Words first," he said. "Always words. Clear, simple. No ambiguity. Stop. Back away. Don't touch me. Whatever the boundary is, stated once." "What if they don't listen?" Kale asked. "Then you act. No second warning. No repeated request. You gave them the information. If they choose to ignore it, they've made their decision." He demonstrated with Veron, who had volunteered. "He's going to approach me aggressively. Watch what I do." Veron came forward, posturing using his size. Silas stood his ground. Neutral stance. "Stop." Veron kept coming. Silas's hand came up. Not a fist, open palm, a clear visual stop sign to match the verbal one. "I said stop." Veron stopped. "See," Silas said to the class. 2 signals, verbal and visual, reinforcing each other. If he'd kept coming after both, I would have acted. But I gave him every opportunity to choose differently." Kale raised her hand. "But what if the person is bigger, stronger? What if the act won't be enough?" Silas looked at her. "Then you do what my daughter taught me. You be brave anyway." The room went quiet. "Bravery," Silas continued, "isn't about knowing you'll win. It's about acting even when you know you might not. It's about drawing the line and standing on it, regardless of what's on the other side." He pulled up a chair, sat, made himself smaller, less threatening. When Nora was 6, there was a kid in her class, bigger than her, older. He was taking lunch credits from the younger children. Nora was the smallest in the class. Kale leaned forward. So did the others, even Veron. One day this kid tried to take hers, and Nora said no. Silas smiled at the memory. Just like that. No yelling, no crying, just no. "What happened?" Mira asked softly. The kid laughed, grabbed for her credit anyway. "And Nora," he paused, the smile growing. She kicked him in the shin and told the teacher. A few cadets made sounds that might have been laughter. The teacher asked her if she was scared. Nora said yes, asked why she fought back anyway. Nora said, "Because being scared isn't a good enough reason to let someone hurt you." Silas's voice thickened. She was 6 years old, and she understood that bravery wasn't the absence of fear. It was acting despite it. He stood. "That's what I'm teaching you. Not how to win fights, how to stand your ground even when you're terrified. How to set boundaries even when you don't know if you can enforce them. How to be brave when brave is the only option left. Kale's eyes were bright. She sounds amazing. She was, Silas said quietly. She was. The session ended. The cadets filed out, whispering among themselves. Silas stayed behind, straightening equipment, needing the mindless task to center himself. Varan remained as well. Your daughter, he said, she would have been strong. She was strong, she just didn't get to show it for very long. I am sorry for your loss. Silas looked up surprised. Krell didn't often express sympathy. It wasn't part of their cultural framework. Thank you, he said. Varan nodded, turned to leave, stopped. You teach her lessons. To us. This honors her memory. On my world, this would be considered appropriate tribute. He left before Silas could respond. But the words settled into the hollow space in Silas's chest and made it feel just slightly less empty. The Academy formally recognized his teaching 3 months after the lecture. Dr. Saura presented him with the paperwork. Assistant Instructor status, official curriculum designation, cross-species conflict studies. Human protocol is now mandatory for all first-year cadets, she explained. You'll be co-teaching with me. The Academy board approved it unanimously. All of them, Silas asked, skeptical. Well, almost all. She paused. Headmaster Voran voted against it. Voran, elderly Krell, traditional, old guard. He'd made his disapproval of human integration clear from the beginning. Let me guess, Silas said. He thinks I'm weakening the program. He thinks humans don't belong in a dominance-based system, that your methods undermine natural hierarchy. He might be right. He's not, but he's going to test you anyway. Silas felt something cold settle in his stomach. Halbertons, Dr. Silra's colors shifted to concerned blue. He's proposing a combat evaluation. Public demonstration. You choose one cadet to train in human methodology. They face an elite opponent using traditional methods. If your student loses badly, the human protocol curriculum gets suspended. You get reassigned to non-teaching duties. And if they win, then Voran retires quietly and we continue expanding the program. Silas sat down heavily. When 4 weeks, he's giving you time to prepare whoever you choose. Time to fail publicly, you mean. Time to prove the method works. Dr. Silra moved closer. Silas, you don't have to accept this. We can push back. Argue it's unfair assessment. No, he said quietly. No, he's right to test it. If I'm teaching cadets to trust this method with their safety, I need to prove it works. Then choose wisely. Choose your best student, your strongest. Silas looked out the window at the training yards, saw his small group running drills. Kale was in front, still the smallest, still the most uncertain, but standing straighter than she had 3 months ago. No, he said, I'm not choosing my strongest. Dr. Silra's colors shifted to alarm. Silas, I'm choosing Kale. She's 19, prey species. Smallest in the program. Against an elite opponent, she'll be destroyed. Maybe. This isn't the time for symbolic gestures. Your entire curriculum is at stake. Silas looked at her directly. Nora was the smallest in her class. She still stood up to the bully. She still protected others. She still showed that size doesn't matter when you understand boundaries. He stood. If I choose the strongest student, I prove that strength wins. That's not what I'm teaching. I'm teaching that anyone can defend themselves if they understand the method. Anyone. Even if she loses? Even then, because she'll lose on her feet. Drawing a line, that's the lesson. Dr. Silra studied him for a long moment. You know what you're risking. Yes. And you're choosing the hardest possible path. Yes. Her colors shifted through several patterns, then settled on something that might have been pride. Your daughter would be very proud of you. My daughter is dead. That doesn't make the statement less true. He told Kyle that evening, called her to his office. She entered nervously, prey instinct, making her cautious in enclosed spaces with predators, even human ones she trusted. Sit, Silas said. Please. She sat, hands folded in her lap, eyes wide. The Academy is testing the program, he explained. In 4 weeks, there will be a public evaluation. One student using human methodology versus an elite opponent using traditional methods. Kale nodded slowly. Who are you choosing, Varan? He's strongest, or Mira? She's been training longest. Neither. Then who? You. Kale's eyes went huge. Me, but I can't, I'm not. You're perfect for this, Silas said gently. I'm the weakest student in the program. Exactly. She stared at him. I don't understand. Silas leaned forward. Kale, if I choose Veron or Mira, I prove that bigger or more experienced students can defend themselves. That's not news. Everyone knows that. But if I choose you, he paused, I prove that the method works for anyone, regardless of size, regardless of strength. That's the point. But what if I lose? Then you lose, and we learn from it. Your whole program gets suspended if I lose. I know. Then why risk it on me? Silas looked at her steadily. Because my daughter was small too, and she didn't let that stop her from standing up. I'm betting you won't either. Kale's hands trembled in her lap. I'm scared. Good. Fear means you're paying attention. It doesn't mean you can't do this. What if I freeze? What if I forget everything? Then I failed as a teacher, not you as a student. She looked up sharply. That's not fair. You're putting all the pressure on yourself. I'm the adult. That's my job. They sat in silence for a moment. Why do you believe in me? Kale asked quietly. You barely know me. Silas reached into his desk, pulled out Nora's drawing, the crayon spaceship. Daddy's the bravest, in child's handwriting at the bottom. He showed it to Kale. My daughter drew this 3 days before she died. She thought I was brave. But the truth is she was braver than I ever was. She stood up to bullies twice her size. She protected kids who couldn't protect themselves. She asked me to teach her bravery like I was the expert when all along she was teaching me. He looked at Kale. You remind me of her, not in appearance, in spirit, in the way you keep showing up even when you're terrified, in the way you ask questions because you want to learn, not because you want to prove something. That's the kind of bravery that matters, and that's why I believe in you. Kale's eyes filled with tears. I'll try. I promise I'll try. I know you will. That's enough. 4 weeks of intensive training, every day, morning and evening sessions. Silas taught her everything he knew, reading body language, recognizing escalation patterns, setting verbal boundaries with absolute clarity, the mechanics of the 3-second conclusion, where to strike, how much force, when to stop. But more than that, he taught her confidence. Stand up straight, he said every session. You belong here. Say it. I belong here, Kale repeated, but her voice was small. Again, like you believe it. I belong here. Again, I belong here. Better. Now move through the world like that. They ran scenarios. Veron volunteered to play the aggressor. He was good at it, knowing exactly how to escalate without actually hurting her. He's coming at you, Silas called out. What do you do? Neutral stance. Kale said, positioning herself. No challenge, no fear. Veron approached, posturing, looming. He's in your space now. What's your first move? Words. Kale's voice was steady. Back away. Veron kept coming. He's not stopping. Second signal. Kale raised her hand. Palm out. Visual reinforcement. I said back away. Veron still came. He's crossing the boundary. What now? Kale moved. Inside his reach. Hand to wrist. Turn. Strike to the nerve cluster. Veron dropped to one knee, controlled fall. Stop, Silas said. Check him. Kale stepped back immediately. Are you okay? Veron stood, rubbing his shoulder. I am fine. Good control. They ran it again, and again, and again, until Kale could do it without thinking, until her body knew the movements and her voice knew the words, and her spirit knew she had the right to draw the line. Between sessions, Silas found himself talking about Nora more, sharing stories, the time she'd climbed a tree and gotten stuck and refused help until she'd figured out how to get down herself. The time she'd made him promise to always tell her the truth even when it was hard. The time she'd asked him what happened when people died and he'd said he didn't know, and she'd said, That's okay, Daddy. We can be scared of it together. Kale listened to every story, never interrupted, just absorbed them like they were precious. She was special, Kale said one evening after training. She was 7, Silas replied. She was just herself. That's what made her special. Do you think she'd like me? The question caught him off guard. Yes, I think she would have. Why? Because you're trying to be brave. That's all she ever asked of anyone. Mira joined them sometimes. So did others from the program. A small group that trained together, ate together, looked out for each other. Davron Thale visited one session. Watched Kale run through this scenario perfectly. Approached Silas afterward. You know what you're doing, he said. No, Silas replied. I really don't. You're giving her what she needs. Confidence, purpose, someone who believes in her. I'm setting her up to fight someone who could really hurt her. You're teaching her that she doesn't have to accept being hurt. There's a difference. Davron's eyes were kind. You're a good teacher, Silas. Your daughter would be proud. Everyone keeps saying that because it's true. The night before the evaluation, Silas couldn't sleep. He lay on his sleeping platform staring at the ceiling, running scenarios in his mind. A knock at his door. Late. Too late for casual visitors. He opened it to find Kale standing there. She'd been crying. I can't do this, she said. I'm sorry. I thought I could, but I can't. I'm going to let you down. Silas stepped aside. Come in. She entered, sat on the edge of his chair, hands trembling. Tell me what you're afraid of, he said. Everything. Losing, failing you, getting hurt, looking stupid in front of everyone, proving that small people can't defend themselves. All of it. Silas sat on the sleeping platform. You know what Nora told me once the night before we got on the ship? Kale shook her head. She said she was scared of the voyage, scared of the new colony, scared of leaving her friends, scared of everything being different. He smiled at the memory. I told her being scared was okay, that brave people are scared all the time. They just do the thing anyway. And she believed you. She did, and you know what she said? What? She said, Daddy, teach me to be brave like you. And I said I would after the trip, when we got to the colony. His voice broke, but I never got the chance. Kale's eyes were wet. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just understand. You asked me why I chose you. This is why. Because Nora asked me to teach her bravery, and I didn't get to. But I can teach you. I can give you what I couldn't give her. And tomorrow when you step into that arena, you won't just be proving a method. You'll be keeping a promise I made to a 7-year-old girl who believed I was the bravest person in the universe. Tears tracked down Kale's face. I'll do my best. That's all she ever wanted from me, and it's all I want from you. She stood, moved to the door, stopped. Silas, yes. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for letting me teach you what she never got to learn. She left. Silas sat alone in his quarters, looked at Nora's drawing on the wall. Tomorrow, he whispered to it. Tomorrow I keep my promise. The drawing didn't answer, but in the silence he could almost hear her voice. I knew you would, Daddy. I always knew. The arena held 3,000 spectators. Every seat filled. Mixed species all come to see if the human method would survive its first real test. Silas stood in the preparation area with Kyle. She was suited in standard academy sparring gear. Lightweight armor, impact-resistant, but designed to allow full movement. She was shaking. Breathe, Mina said quietly. Just breathe. Kale drew in a shuddering breath. Across the arena, the opponent was warming up. Female predator, twice Kale's size, 3 times her muscle mass. Elite combat training. Her name was Sareth, Krell species. Traditional methodology. This was going to be brutal. Remember, Silas said, crouching to meet Kale's eyes, this isn't about winning. It's about standing your ground, drawing the line, enforcing the boundary. But I have to win, Kale said. For you, for the program. No, you have to be brave. Win or lose, if you do that, I'm proud of you. How do I be brave when I'm this scared? Silas smiled. You're already being brave. You showed up. That's the hard part. The announcement system crackled. Combatants to the floor. Kale looked at the arena entrance. Her legs locked. Kale, Silas said gently, look at me. She did. Nora was scared too. When the ship started failing, when the alarms went off, when the oxygen started running out, she was terrified. But you know what she did? What? She held her mother's hand. She tried to be brave. She called for me. She acted even in fear. And that's what you're going to do. You're going to walk out there. Stand your ground. And act. Scared or not. Okay? Kale nodded, straightened. Okay. They walked to the entrance together. Silas stopped at the threshold. I'll be right here. Watching. Believing. Kale stepped into the arena. The crowd's noise hit like a physical wave. Cheering, jeering, speculation. Sareth was already in the center. Massive, confident, predator to the core. Kale walked to meet her. Small, shaking. Prey species stepping into the hunter's domain. The referee explained the rules. Traditional escalation protocol. 3-round structure. Submission ends the match. Medical intervention ends the match. The crowd quieted. The bell rang. Sareth began the ritual. Circling, posturing, displaying strength, muscles rippling, claws extended. The full predator package designed to make smaller beings back down. Kale stood in neutral stance, exactly as taught. No challenge, no fear displayed, just presence. Sareth moved closer. Loomed. Small one, she growled. Submit now. Save yourself pain. Kale's voice when it came was quiet but clear. No thank you. The crowd murmured, polite refusal in the face of threat, unheard of. Sareth circled again, brushed Kale's shoulder. Testing. Please don't touch me, Kale said. Sareth laughed, did it again. Harder. I asked you not to touch me, Kale repeated. Louder now, clearer. Sareth's expression shifted, confusion mixed with irritation. You do not make demands of me, small one. Kale raised her hand, palm out, visual signal. I'm not demanding, I'm stating a boundary. Don't touch me. Sareth's eyes narrowed. And if I do, Kale's voice was steady, then I make you stop. Silas, watching from the entrance, felt his heart slamming against his ribs. She was perfect, absolutely perfect, calm, clear, confident. Sareth struck, a testing blow, not full force, just enough to knock Kale back, to establish dominance. Kale stumbled, caught herself, blood on her lip. The crowd leaned forward. Kale straightened, wiped the blood, looked at Sareth with those large eyes. I warned you, she said quietly, and moved. Inside Sareth's reach, hand to wrist, turn, strike to the nerve cluster. Sareth gasped. Kale stepped back immediately. Yield. Sareth stared at her, shock written across her face. Her arm hung useless. Yield, Kale repeated. Please, I don't want to hurt you more than I already have. Sareth looked at the referee, at the crowd, at this tiny prey species who had just hit her faster than she could process. She yielded. The crowd erupted. Kale stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard blood still on her lip, looking stunned by her own success. Silas was already moving. He crossed the arena floor in seconds. Reached Kyle just as her legs started to give out. He caught her. I've got you. I've got you. She was crying. I did it. I actually did it. I knew you would. I was so scared. I know, you did it anyway. That's what bravery is. Medical staff arrived, checked KL over. Minor injuries, adrenaline crash. She'd be fine. They helped her to the medical bay. Silas walked beside her, hand on her shoulder. Behind them, the crowd was still processing what they'd seen. The smallest cadet in the program, prey species, 19 years old, defeating an elite predator in 3 seconds, using words first, then action, just like she'd been taught, just like Nora would have done. Dr. Sara found him in the medical bay an hour later. Kale was sleeping, exhausted from adrenaline and emotion. Mira sat beside her bed, protective, proud. The academy board met in emergency session, Dr. Sara said. Headmaster Voren has retired, effective immediately. And the program, expanded, mandatory for all years, not just first. You're being promoted to full instructor status. Her colors were warm. Congratulations. Silas looked at Kyle sleeping, at Mira keeping watch, at the small family he'd somehow built from grief and distance and determination. I didn't do this for promotions, he said quietly. I know, you did it for her. Dr. Sora's voice was gentle. Nora. I did it because she asked me to teach her, and I couldn't, but I could teach them. And in teaching them, you found what you were running toward. Silas looked at her. What do you mean? Dr. Seller's colors shifted to something knowing. You came here to escape, to run from the places on Earth where your family used to be. But you didn't escape. You just found a different family, one that needs you as much as you need them. Varen appeared in the doorway. Behind him, 3 other cadets from the program. They'd come to check on Kyle, to celebrate, to be together. They saw Silas and paused. Instructor, Varen said formally. Then his voice softened. Thank you for teaching us. For teaching all of us, Mira added. Silas looked at them. This group of beings from different worlds, different evolutionary paths, different languages of conflict and connection, united by a method, united by trust, united by the lessons a brave little girl had never gotten to learn but had somehow taught anyway. She would have liked you, he said, voice thick. All of you. You're exactly the kind of people she would have wanted me to help. They stayed with Kyle until she woke, surrounded her with presence and warmth and community. And Silas, standing among them, felt something shift. Not healing, not yet. The wound was too deep for that. But purpose, direction, a reason to be here that had nothing to do with running and everything to do with keeping promises. Nora had asked him to teach her bravery, He was teaching it every day, to anyone who would learn, to everyone who needed it. And somewhere in the distance, between grief and purpose, between loss and legacy, Silas Reed began to understand that maybe this was enough. Maybe this was what it meant to honor her memory, not by saving her, he couldn't, but by saving others in her name, by teaching them the bravery she'd shown him, by being the father she'd believed he was, even now, even here, even broken, especially broken. Because broken people know how to find the cracks in others and fill them with light. Kale opened her eyes, saw everyone gathered, smiled. "We did it," she whispered. "You did it," Silas corrected gently. "No, we didn't find all of us together." And looking at them, Kale, Miravero, and the others, Silas had to agree. They had done this together. A family built from grief and hope and the simple act of showing up for each other. Not the family he'd lost, but a family nonetheless. And that finally was enough. 6 months after Kale's victory, the academy felt different. Silas walked through corridors that had once been foreign territory and found himself knowing names, faces, stories. The Zentari cadet who struggled with individual decision-making because her hive mind species thought collectively. The Serrani who'd lost family to territorial disputes and came here seeking understanding. The young Krell who'd been exiled from his pack for showing compassion. They all knew him now. Instructor Reed, the human who taught boundaries instead of dominance, who spoke about his dead daughter like she was still teaching lessons, who built a strange cross-species family from grief and determination. The Academy had made it official 3 months prior. Human protocol was no longer experimental. It was mandatory. First year through fourth year cadets, all species, all backgrounds. Everyone learned that words came first, that boundaries mattered, that 3 seconds could change everything. Devron Thael now. Headmaster Devron Thael had overseen the expansion personally. Voron's retirement had opened space for change, and Davron had walked through that space with quiet determination. He found Silas in the main training hall watching the afternoon rotation. 27 cadets moving through drills. Mixed species, some practicing traditional methods, some practicing human methodology. Most practicing both learning to code switch between cultural frameworks. "They're adapting," Davron said, settling beside him. "They're learning," Silas corrected. "Adaptation implies survival pressure. This is choice." Semantics. Important semantics. Davron smiled. Krell didn't smile often, but Silas had learned to read the subtle shift in facial muscles that meant amusement. "You sound like a teacher." "I am a teacher." "Yes, you are." Davron paused. "The Galactic Education Council wants to meet with you." Silas felt something tighten in his chest. "Why?" "Because word has spread. 4 other academies have requested human protocol integration. 7 more are considering it. The council wants to standardize the curriculum, make it available across all member worlds." "That's good." "It is, but there's a condition." Of course there was. "They want you to present the curriculum personally, to the full council. On Earth." The training hall seemed to tilt. Silas gripped the railing. "Earth," he repeated quietly. "Yes. I can't go back there. I know it's difficult." "You don't know." The words came out harder than intended. Silas closed his eyes. "I'm sorry, that was disrespectful." It was honest. Davron's voice was gentle. "But Silas, this is bigger than personal comfort. If the council adopts your curriculum, you'll be teaching millions. Humans, aliens, everyone. Nora's lessons will reach across the galaxy." Nora's lessons, not his, never his. Everything he taught came from her. From the brave little girl who'd kicked a bully and told the teacher, who'd held her mother's hand when the oxygen ran out, who'd asked her father to teach her bravery like he was the expert when all along she'd been the one with the answers. When, Silas asked? 4 months, enough time to prepare, to build the presentation, to, Davron hesitated, to make peace with going home. Home. Earth hadn't been home for 3 years. Home was a grave he couldn't visit, a house he'd sold without ever going back inside, a colony ship's passenger section C where 2 people he loved had stopped breathing. "I'll think about it," Silas said. "The council needs an answer in 2 weeks." "Then I'll think about it for 2 weeks." Davron studied him with those forward-set predator eyes that had learned to see past surfaces. "You're afraid." "Yes." "Of what?" Silas looked at the cadets' training, at the family he'd built from distance and determination. "Of losing this, of going back to that place where everything reminds me they're gone, of not being able to come back here." "You think Earth will trap you?" "I think grief is patient. and I've been running from it for 3 years. If I stop running, if I go back to where it lives, I don't know if I'm strong enough to leave again. Then don't go alone. Silas looked at him sharply. Devron's expression was kind. Take your family with you, the one you've built here. Let them help carry what you can't carry alone. The meeting happened that evening. Silas's quarters now larger, befitting full instructor status. Kale, Mira, Verone, and 3 others from the core group, his academy family, as Dr. Silra called them. He told them about the council's request, about Earth, about the condition. They listened in silence. Finally, Kale spoke. Are you going to say yes? I don't know. What's stopping you? Mira asked gently. Silas looked at Nora's drawing now framed on his wall. I haven't been back since the funeral. Since I stood at her grave and couldn't find words. Since I watched them lower her and Cassandra into the ground and felt like I was being buried with them. Then maybe, Verone said quietly, it is time to visit them properly. With words. With understanding of what you have built in their name. I'm afraid I won't be able to leave. We won't let that happen, Kale said firmly. If you go, we go with you, all of us. We'll make sure you come back. Silas looked around the room, at beings from different worlds, different evolutionary paths, different everything. United by choice, by trust, by the lessons they'd learned together. You'd do that, he asked. Come to Earth with me. You came here for us, Mira said. Taught us, believed in us. This is us returning that. Pack supports pack, Varen added. Even humans understand this. Silas felt his throat tighten. Thank you. So you'll go, Kale pressed. He looked at Nora's drawing, at her careful child's handwriting. Daddy's the bravest. She'd asked him to teach her bravery. He'd been teaching it for months now, to dozens of cadets. And if he said yes, to millions more. But to do that, he had to face the one thing he'd been running from. The place where she wasn't. The grave that held her body but not her spirit. The memories that lived in Earth's soil and air and light. Yes, he said quietly. Yes, I'll go. The next 2 weeks were preparation. Dr. Silra helped him build the presentation. Footage from Kale's victory. Testimonials from cadets. Data showing reduced injury rates, improved cross-species cooperation, better conflict resolution outcomes. But the core of the presentation was story. Nora's story. How a 7-year-old girl had understood bravery better than most adults. How her lessons had traveled across the galaxy. How her memory had become curriculum. Silas practiced in front of the group, stumbled over words when emotion caught him. Started again. Let them see him break and rebuild. It's good, Mira said after one run-through, but it's missing something. What? You talk about Nora, but you don't talk about Cassandra, her mother, the woman who raised such a brave child. Silas went very still. He hadn't spoken about Cassandra much, not because he didn't think about her, because thinking about her hurt in different ways. Nora had been his baby, his little girl, his legacy. But Cassandra had been his partner, his equal, the person who'd made him better than he was alone. What do I say about her? He asked quietly. The truth, Mira replied, that brave children come from brave parents, that Nora learned from both of you, that her legacy is theirs. He added it to the presentation. A section about Cassandra, about the woman who'd held their daughter's hand, who'd stayed calm so Nora wouldn't be more afraid than necessary, about the woman who'd taught him that bravery wasn't the absence of fear, it was love greater than terror. The transport to Earth took 3 weeks. Silas spent most of it in his quarters preparing, practicing, trying not to think about what waited at the end. The others gave him space but checked in daily. Kael brought food. Mira brought conversation. Verone brought silence and presence. Dr. Silra came once, sat with him by the observation window, watched the stars stream by. You're doing the right thing, she said. Doesn't feel right. Feels terrifying. Those aren't opposites. No, I suppose they're not. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Can I ask you something? Silas said eventually. Always. Do you think she'd be proud, Nora, of what I'm doing? Dr. Silra's colors shifted to warm gold. I think she'd be amazed. A child asked her father to teach her bravery. 3 years later, he's teaching it to entire worlds. That's not just pride, that's legacy. But I didn't save her. No, you didn't, and you'll carry that grief forever. But Silas, you're saving others. In her name. With her lessons. That matters. Does it make up for failing her? Nothing makes up for losing a child, but it gives the loss meaning, and meaning sometimes is all we have. They arrived at Earth on a gray morning. The transport docked at the orbital station. Silas looked down at the planet through the viewport and felt 3 years of distance collapse into nothing. That was where she'd lived, where she'd drawn pictures and asked questions and learned to be brave, where her body was buried in a cemetery he'd only seen once and never wanted to see again. Ready? KL asked quietly, standing beside him. No. Good, means you're paying attention. He smiled despite himself. I taught you that. Yes, you did. They took a shuttle down. The descent was smooth, professional, nothing like the Meridian's Hope's final moments. But Silas's hand still gripped the armrests until his knuckles went white. Mira noticed, reached over, placed her hand on his. You're safe, we're all safe. He managed to nod. The shuttle landed at the primary spaceport. They disembarked into Earth's standard gravity Earth's atmosphere, Earth's light that looked different from station lighting in ways Silas had forgotten. Everything was too familiar. The sounds, the smells, the language flowing around them in Earth standard rather than translated galactic common. He stood on the landing pad surrounded by his academy family and felt like he was drowning in memory. Instructor Reed, a voice, human, female, mid-60s professional attire, kind eyes behind glasses. I'm Coordinator Morrison. I'll be your liaison for the council presentation. Silas shook her offered hand. Thank you. The council meeting is in 3 days. I've arranged accommodations. If you need anything, I need to visit someone first, Silas said, before anything else. Morrison's expression softened. Of course. I'll arrange transport. The cemetery was an hour outside the city. Green grass, stone markers, trees that whispered in wind that felt nothing like recycled station air. Silas stood at the entrance, unable to move forward. Behind him, his group waited. Patient, present, not pushing. I can't, he whispered. Kyle stepped forward. You can. We're right here. What if I break? Then we'll hold the pieces until you can put them back together. Silas looked at her, at this 19-year-old who'd been terrified and small and had learned to be brave because he'd taught her, because Nora's lessons had reached her. Okay, he said. Okay. They walked together through the cemetery, past stones marking other lives, other stories, other grief, until he found them. 2 markers, side by side. Cassandra Reed, beloved wife and mother, she sang while the stars went dark. Nora Reed, beloved daughter, age 7. Daddy's the bravest. Silas's legs gave out. He dropped to his knees in the grass. 3 years of holding himself together, of teaching and functioning and pretending to be whole, and here finally he broke. Sobs tore from his chest, raw, ugly, grief that had been waiting patiently for him to stop running. The group surrounded him. Kale on one side, Mira on the other, Varen behind him, hands on his shoulders, the others forming a circle, holding space, letting him shatter. I'm sorry, he gasped. I'm so sorry. I should have saved you. Should have been faster. Should have. Silas. Mira's voice gentle. They know. They've always known. I failed them. You made an impossible choice in 3 seconds. You did everything you could. It wasn't enough. It never is. That's what makes it impossible. He cried until he had nothing left, until the sobs became shudders, became silence. Then he sat back, looked at the markers. I've been teaching, he said quietly, speaking to the stones, to the memories, to the ghosts that lived in the space between then and now. Teaching what you asked me to, Nora. Bravery, to anyone who'll learn. The wind moved through the trees. No answer, just presence. There's a girl, he continued. Her name is Kyle. She's small like you were, scared like everyone is, but she's brave, because I taught her, because you taught me. Kale made a small sound. He glanced at her, saw tears on her face. There are dozens of them now, different species, different worlds, but they're all learning the same thing. That bravery isn't about being fearless. It's about acting anyway. You knew that at 7. Took me 31 years and losing you to understand it. He reached out, touched Nora's stone. I miss you every day, every moment, but I'm trying to honor you, to make your last wish mean something. And I think it's working. Behind him, Varen spoke quietly. It is working. We are proof. Millions more will learn, Mira added, because of her, because of you. Silas stood slowly. His legs were unsteady, but he managed. He looked at Cassandra's stone. Thank you, he whispered, for teaching her first, for being brave when I couldn't be. No answer, just wind, just memory. But standing here surrounded by beings from across the galaxy who'd come to Earth to support him, who'd learned lessons his daughter had inspired, Silas felt something shift. Not healing. The wound was too deep, would always be too deep. But acceptance. That this was real. That they were good, that he'd survived when they hadn't. That he carried their legacy forward, not because it made up for anything, but because it was all he could do. I'm going to the council, he said to the stones. Going to teach everyone, every world. Your lessons, Nora. Cassandra's love. Our family's bravery. And then I'm going back to the academy. Because I have work to do. Students to teach. A promise to keep. He stepped back. I'll come again, before I leave, to tell you how it went. They left the cemetery together. Silas looked back once, at the stones marking where pieces of his heart were buried. Then he turned forward and kept walking. The hotel was comfortable, Earth standard. The group gathered in Silas's room that evening, eating food that tasted like home to him and alien to them. Thank you, he said, for being there today. Where else would we be? Kale asked simply. On the academy, training, living your lives, not watching me fall apart in a cemetery. You did not fall apart, Veron said. You grieved. There is honor in that. Your species doesn't grieve like that. No, we do not. But we understand loss, and we understand that pack supports pack even in ways that are unfamiliar. Mira raised her glass. To Nora and Cassandra, who taught us all bravery. They drank. Water for most of them, but the gesture mattered. The next morning, there was a knock at Silas's door. He opened it to find Coordinator Morrison and two other people. An older couple, mid-60s. The woman had Cassandra's eyes. The man had Cassandra's sharp cheekbones. Silas froze. Mr. Reed, Morrison said gently, these are William and Margaret Foster. They asked to see you before the presentation. Cassandra's parents, Nora's grandparents. He hadn't seen them since the funeral. Since they'd stood across the grave from him, eyes full of blame and grief and rage. Since Margaret had whispered, you killed them, loud enough for him to hear, quiet enough that only he heard. Since he'd believed her. We'll leave you alone, Morrison said, backing away. The three of them stood in the hotel corridor, staring at each other across 3 years of estrangement and pain. May we come in? William asked quietly. Silas stepped aside. They entered. He closed the door. They sat in the small sitting area. Silence stretched. Finally, Margaret spoke. We heard you were here for the council presentation. We needed to see you. Okay, Silas said. Because what else was there to say? We've been following the news, William continued, about the academy, about what you're teaching. Human protocol, they're calling it. Yes. It's based on things Nora understood, Margaret said. Her voice cracked. On her lessons. Yes, more silence. We blamed you, Margaret whispered. At the funeral. After. We told ourselves if you'd been faster, made different choices, our daughter and granddaughter would still be alive. Silas nodded. I blamed myself too. We were wrong. William's eyes were wet. We read the inquiry reports, all of them, studied the data, talked to experts. You saved hundreds of people in 3 seconds. No one else could have done that. No one. But I didn't save them. No, you didn't, because it was impossible. The cascade failure, the debris field, the pressure loss. The only way everyone survived would have been if the accident never happened. And that wasn't in your control. Margaret leaned forward. We've spent 3 years hating you, hating ourselves for not being on that ship, hating the universe for taking them. And it didn't bring them back. It just made the loss bigger. Why are you telling me this? Silas asked quietly. Because we were wrong, Margaret said. And because Nora wouldn't want us living like this, separated, broken, blaming. She pulled something from her bag, a small holoframe. She activated it. Nora appeared, 7 years old, laughing, Cassandra beside her, arms around their daughter, both of them happy and alive and whole. This was 2 weeks before the voyage, Margaret said. Nora was talking about you, about how brave her daddy was, how he could do anything. She believed in you completely. Silas couldn't breathe. She still would, William said gently. If she could see what you're doing now, teaching her lessons to entire worlds, honoring her memory, being the father she believed you were. I failed her. You loved her, Margaret corrected. You did everything you could. And when you couldn't save her, you made her loss mean something. That's not failure. That's love. She stood, crossed the space, hugged him. Silas stood rigid, shocked, unable to process. We forgive you, she whispered against his shoulder. For whatever you think you did wrong, we forgive you, and we hope someday you'll forgive us. For the blame, for the silence, for wasting 3 years we could have spent remembering them together. Something inside Silas broke open. He hugged her back, felt William join them. Three people bound by loss, finally finding each other again. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "I'm so sorry." "So are we," Margaret said. "So are we." They stayed like that for a long time, crying, grieving. Finally, after 3 years sharing the weight, when they finally separated, William spoke. "We'd like to attend the presentation. If that's all right, to see what you've built, to hear you honor her." "Yes," Silas managed. "Yes, please." They left him there, sitting in the chair, holding the holoframe, showing Cassandra and Nora smiling. He looked at it for a long time. Then he went to find his academy family and tell them he was ready. Ready to present. Ready to teach the galaxy. Ready to keep the promise. The Galactic Education Council chamber was enormous. Tiered seating rising in concentric circles. Representatives from 47 member worlds, hundreds of species, all gathered to hear about a 7-year-old human girl and the lessons she'd taught. Silas stood at the center podium, his academy family in the front row, Margaret and William beside them. Dr. Saura had arrived that morning, colors shifting with pride. Davron's face appeared on a communication screen. Attending remotely from the academy, the chamber quieted. Silas began. 3 years ago, I lost my wife and daughter, Cassandra and Nora Reed. They died in a transport accident while I was piloting the ship. I had 3 seconds to save them. It wasn't enough. The chamber was silent. Nora's last words were, "Daddy, teach me to be brave like you." She thought I was brave. I thought I was a failure. For 2 years, I believed both things were true. Then I joined the Interspecies Academy, not to teach, to run, to escape a world where every corner held memories. He activated the first display. Nora's drawing, the crayon spaceship. This is what she drew 3 days before she died. She thought I was the bravest person in the universe. She was 7 years old, and she was wrong about me, but she was right about bravery. He advanced to the next slide, footage of Kyle's victory, the 3-second conclusion. This is Kyle. She's 19, prey species, smallest in her class. She defeated an elite predator using methodology based on what Nora understood at 7. That boundaries matter. That words come first. That bravery isn't about posturing. It's about acting when action is needed. He played more footage, testimonials, data, results. Human protocol isn't about making humans dominant. It's about teaching everyone that there are multiple ways to resolve conflict, that different species can learn from each other, that a 7-year-old's understanding of bravery can change how we teach millions. He paused, looked at Margaret and William, at the holoframe they'd given him. Nora's mother, Cassandra, taught her first, taught her that love is stronger than fear, that holding someone's hand through terror is its own kind of bravery. His voice broke. He steadied it. "I didn't save them, but I can save others. I can teach Nora's lessons, honor Cassandra's love, make their loss mean something." He looked around the chamber. That's what human protocol is, not a methodology, a legacy. And I'm asking you to help me spread that legacy across every world, every species, every child who needs to learn that bravery isn't fearlessness. It's love greater than terror. He ended the presentation, stood in silence. The chamber erupted, not in applause, in something else. A wave of response that transcended species. Some voices, some colors, some frequencies humans couldn't hear, but all saying the same thing. Yes, the vote was unanimous. Human protocol would become standard curriculum across all member worlds. Silas would oversee development. The academy would become the primary training center. Margaret and William approached after, hugged him again. "She'd be so proud," Margaret whispered. "So would Cassandra," William added. Coordinator Morrison appeared with documentation, endless paperwork. Silas signed it, all numb with exhaustion and accomplishment. His academy family surrounded him. "We did it," Cale said. "You did it," Silas corrected. "No," Mira said firmly. "We, all of us, together." Doctor. Silra's colors were brilliant gold. "Congratulations, Instructor Reed." "Thank you. Are you ready to go home?" Home. She meant the academy, not Earth. "Yes," he said, and manned it. Before they left, Silas returned to the cemetery, alone this time, not because the others wouldn't come, because he needed this moment with just her. He knelt by the stones, placed the holoframe between them. "I did it," he said quietly. "Kept my promise. Your lessons are going to teach millions. Every world, every species. because of you. The wind moved through the trees. Margaret and William came. We talked, forgave each other. They gave me this. He touched the holoframe. I'm taking it with me, keeping you close, but I'm also letting you rest. You and your mom. You've done enough, taught enough. The galaxy is taking it from here. He stood, looked at the stones one more time. I love you, both of you, every day, every moment. But I can't stay here. I have work to do, students to teach, a family waiting. They're not you, they never will be, but they're mine and I'm theirs, and I think that's okay. No answer, just wind and memory and peace. Goodbye, he whispered. I'll carry you forward, always. He walked away, didn't look back this time. The academy was waiting. 20 months later, the academy had doubled in size. Human cadets from across settled space, alien cadets from 47 worlds, all learning together. Silas stood at the entrance to the new wing. The dedication ceremony had just concluded. Margaret and William had attended via hologram, representatives from the Galactic Council as well. The plaque beside the door was simple. Bronze, clear lettering. Nora Reed Memorial Hall, where bravery is taught with compassion. Beneath it, her drawing preserved behind protective glass. The crayon spaceship. Daddy's the bravest. Kale stood beside him, no longer a student, an instructor now. She'd like this, Kale said softly. I hope so. They watched cadets enter. New arrivals. Nervous, uncertain. Varen appeared leading a group. Advanced Combat Integration class. Mira was in the counseling wing. Dr. Salra had expanded her department. Davron found Silas as the crowd dispersed. How does it feel? Right, Silas said. It feels right. You've built something remarkable. No, Nora built it. I'm just the contractor. Davron smiled. She'd be proud. They walked through the academy together, past training halls, past lecture rooms, past the memorial hall where Nora's drawing hung inspiring thousands. Silas's quarters were larger now. Faculty housing. He entered, looked around at the space that had become home. Photos on the wall, Cassandra and Nora in the holoframe, but also others, the academy family, Kale's graduation, Mira's first counseling certification, Veron receiving instructor status, group photos, 2 families, one lost, one found, both precious. He sat at his desk, pulled up curriculum for Earth's primary education system, teaching children what Nora had understood at 7. A message appeared, Margaret and William weekly update, photos of the garden they'd planted in Nora's memory. He replied, attached a photo of the memorial hall. She's teaching thousands. Thank you for forgiving me. Their response came quickly. Thank you for honoring her. We're proud of you. So is she. Silas looked at the holoframe, at Cassandra and Nora laughing. I kept my promise, he said quietly, teaching bravery, every day, to anyone who'll learn. The frame didn't answer. It never did. But in the silence he heard something. Maybe memory, maybe imagination, maybe grief finally softening into something else. Nora's voice, 7 years old, certain and clear. I knew you would, Daddy. I always knew. The next morning, new cadets assembled in the memorial hall, 60 beings from 23 worlds. Silas stood before them, Kale beside him, the drawing on the wall behind them. Welcome to Human Protocol, he said. I'm Instructor Reed. This course will teach you conflict resolution through boundary enforcement. But before we start, I want to tell you about the person who invented this methodology. He gestured to the drawing. Her name was Nora Reed. She was 7 years old, and she understood something most adults never learn. That bravery isn't about being fearless. It's about acting anyway. 60 faces looked at the crayon spaceship. She never got to take this class. She died before she could learn everything she wanted to learn. But her lessons lived on. Through me, through Instructor Hale, through thousands of students across 47 worlds. He paused. This isn't just a class, it's a promise. A promise I made to a 7-year-old girl that I would teach her bravery. I didn't get to teach her. But I can teach you, and in teaching you, keep that promise. He looked at them, at the next generation. Let's begin, he said, and they did. Silas Reed stood in the memorial hall on his last day as active instructor, retirement, passing the program to Kyle and others who'd learned from the source. He looked at Nora's drawing one final time. I kept my promise, he said, taught the galaxy to be brave because of you, because you believed I could. He placed his hand on the frame, remembered her small hand in his, her laughter, her questions, her certainty that her daddy was the bravest person in the universe. "Thank you," he whispered, "for teaching me first, for being brave when I couldn't, for giving me a reason to keep going when I wanted to stop, for asking me to teach you, because in teaching you I taught myself, for being mine, even for 7 short years. It was enough. You were enough. You'll always be enough." He stepped back, smiled at the drawing through tears he no longer tried to hide. "Rest well, little one. Your work here is done. The galaxy is taking it from here." He walked out of the memorial hall, into the sunlight, into the rest of his life. Behind him, new students entered, looked at the drawing, began to learn. And somewhere in the distance, between memory and legacy, between loss and love, between grief and grace, a 7-year-old girl smiled, because her daddy had kept his promise. He taught the galaxy to be brave, just like she'd always known he would.